So welcome to the Conservation Chronicles, a podcast for the Wildlife Trust for Lancashire, Manchester and North Merseyside. I'm your host, Jenni and today we're going to be talking all about urban nature, what it is, why it's so important and how we can all get involved. And so to talk about that with me today, we've got two fantastic guests with us today. I've got Rory Andrews, who is our Greater Manchester Nature Recovery Manager, and Jenni Lee, who is the Community Engagement Manager for Greater Manchester. So hi, thank you so much
Thank you for having us.
Being part of our lovely podcast. So yeah, let's just kind of get straight into it. What is urban nature? Like, how would you describe it?
Well, it's just everywhere. Urban nature is everywhere. So people often view nature as going to the Lake District, going to Highlands of Scotland, going abroad, Galapagos Islands, whereas nature's in your garden, it's on your doorstep, it's on your walk to school, your walk to work, it's in your local park. We are surrounded by nature and often we don't realise it.
Yeah.
And it's, almost a case of just looking for it. It's there if you look for it. And there's so many cool and exciting things in urban areas. It could be much better, and that's part of our jobs is to make urban nature better and make it more accessible, have, different species, more species, increase biodiversity, help climate change, etc. But it is everywhere if you look for it.
Yeah, it's just sort of there. And Jenni, why do you think urban nature is important and why is it important to people as well?
I think it's got so many reasons why it's important. Green is quite often the answer to a lot of our problems, both physical and social infrastructure.
Yeah.
And I think thinking about things like ecosystem services, so it helps against flooding, cooling of our urban spaces, which is essential. Also, like I said, around our wellbeing, it's so many bits of research and lived experience around how having that connection to nature is beneficial for our health, mental and physical.
Yeah. So we've got all this kind of nature on our doorsteps and, maybe if we don't live in the middle of the countryside, we live in a much more urban environment. What are the kind of things that we could expect to see? What are some of those kind of common species? I mean, I know we've got a robin flying around in this fig tree next to us, which is rather nice.
There's loads of things we can see, like I say, just in our gardens, our local parks. So things like butterflies, got the main species of butterflies. They're having a better year this year because of the drier weather butterflies, but they are still in decline. So there's lots of work that we do and people in the gardens can do to improve butterflies, which we'll get onto in a bit. And obviously Butterfly Conservation Trust doing loads of work. So there's a big butterfly count as we talk. Yes. Loads of different garden birds, robins, etc. And like the classic pollinators as well. So there's bees, we've got moths, there's all sorts. It's just knowing where to look and trying to find it.
I think there's a real excitement with urban areas that you expect. It's almost like if you were to go somewhere a bit more rural, you expect to see nature and, to have those
wow. See a fox
and those wow moments. But when you see nature, almost sometimes it's viewed that urban spaces are human spaces and we forget that we are part of nature. And so when we see like a fox, an urban fox sort of darting through on our walk home from work in the winter, there's like this magical moment that you feel like really honoured and really special. And it's that reminder that we're both sharing this space and it's as much wildlife's home as it is ours.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got, the kind of common species that a lot of people might be familiar with, but are there kind of some really exciting species that are out there in urban areas that maybe we wouldn't expect?
There's loads. So we've got the world's fastest animal. So Peregrine falcons, they nest just down the road from our Bolton office on Bolton Town Hall, and they dive up to 200 miles an hour. So they're the world's fastest animal. So they're, a very urban species. Lots of birds of prey. We have lots of buzzards. Red kites are recolonising up from reintroductions, like further south and in Wales. So we're seeing them in Greater Manchester as well now. We've got kingfishers going along a lot of our waterways, which is a real good sign that our waterways are improving. Again, like everything, there's a long way to go, but things are improving. It's not all doom and gloom like you often read about. There are good news stories. They've got some really rare birds. We have even things like woodpeckers, so most of our woodlands will, have woodpeckers in, which people don't quite realise. And people think they're, some people don't even think they belong in the UK, people don't realise. And they're there again on our doorstep. We've got some really rare birds like, is it the red blackstart or black redstart?
Annoyingly, a lot of our birds have really similar sounding names.
I'm going to fly the flag a little bit for plants as well.
Yeah.
So going back to Bolton start. I went for a walk with one of our, with Dave Wynnard, a conservationist that is just a fantastic amount of knowledge, and went over to Knob End, which is a SSSI, Site of Special Scientific Interest in Bolton, and I was amazed at the amount of orchids that the site is renowned for. And I didn't get to see it, but he reassures me there's bee orchid on site.
I've seen a bee orchid there this year.
And see it. I'd never seen a fragrant orchid, or I'd never smelt a fragrant orchid before. And again, there's all these, and I think people are starting to take a lot more notice of the finer details like when you look at these big landscapes, like the moorlands and up in the Lake District, Peak District and things, it's easy to see these kind of wow moments, but people are taking a lot more notice of the smaller details. So there's almost like that beauty in a dandelion. So it might not be that big, like hyper, wow, peregrine falcon, which is amazing to see flying around city centres. But yeah, you're starting to take notice of that beauty in the small things, that macro view on things.
Absolutely. I always think dandelions are really unfairly maligned. Like they're so beautiful. They're this amazing little kind of sunshine that just bursts out, and they're everywhere.
Exactly. And when the sun shines instead, and they're just ta-da!
They're fantastic. I love a dandelion, and they're delicious.
Well, just going back to Knob End. So Knob End's a really interesting site. So it's a brownfield site. So it's a site of big industry and hundreds of years ago, and it is basically a dumping site. So they used to dump waste from the LeBlanc process.
What's the LeBlanc process?
Rory.
I think something like, I think they made like washing powder or something.
Oh, okay.
But anyway, so it's basically a site where they dumped hundreds and thousands of tons of just waste, and it's built up, and it's made this. Because the waste they dumped was alkali, so it's like an alkaline grassland.
Yeah.
And it's it's really rare, so you don't find it anywhere nearby, and it's sort of there by accident. But because of that, it's got these really interesting orchids and these really interesting species, and we're doing some work in the winter to help restore that as well. So it's a really exciting place, and it's a really unusual place, and it just shows that in such a heavily urbanised area, and an area that is just literally a dumping ground, nature can thrive given a chance. And we see that a lot in Manchester. We have a lot of ex-landfill sites and old coal mines and things like that, especially in Wigan. And the amount of nature there is incredible. And it's just giving nature that helping hand to get back. And there's loads of cool species. Like we have otters coming back into Manchester. We've seen them along the Mersey, water voles, etc. So there's loads of exciting things to see.
It's really great, isn't it? And I think sometimes, you think about these kind of post-industrial areas as really bleak and sad and devoid of nature, but actually we can give it that little helping hand, and nature does come back. You mentioned the water vole there. It's one of our rarest sort of UK resident mammals, but we're finding it coming back to these wonderful places. So tell us a little bit more about some of the projects that are going on, our sort of urban nature projects, what we're doing out there to try and sort of support urban nature and support people to engage with that as well.
Yeah, so we've done lots of projects over the years as a trust, but we've got a really exciting new project called Championing Nature. So it's a 7-year project, which myself and Jenni and a few others are working on, and it's with Wimbledon and Emirates, so made possible by Wimbledon and Emirates.
As in the tennis people.
So it's very exciting. So we've got 7 years funding, and we're going to be focused in Wythenshawe South Manchester, and we're going to be doing lots of things like community engagement, how people can improve their gardens, improve wildlife, but also help improve key green spaces. So we've got 3 key green spaces we're going to improve, and then alongside that, we're going to be running training sessions and volunteering for people to get involved and to upskill and to be able to help tackle nature for themselves, and we hopefully can create some nature champions out of that.
Okay.
It's very much around a focus around young people, and young people being the voice and being the future. So it's a big part of the community engagement and education side is going to be around supporting young people to feel like they belong in a green space, in their green space, in their urban green space, and feel that connection. And once that is kind of instilled and becomes part of our young people's being, we then start with the training element, and so give people the knowledge and skills to then take action on the sense of connection and that sense of belonging.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you've got those stewards for way past our lifetime and for years to come, which hopefully then gets past generations.
Yeah.
And there we go. Problem solved, done.
It's really great. And I mean, if people did want to find out more about that, and you can just sort of head to our website and sign up to our newsletter as well, and you'll be able to get loads more information through that.
And there's lots more things apart from just Wythenshawe. We do volunteering across all our urban areas, especially in Manchester. We run weekly volunteer groups in sort of Bolton, and same in Wigan. And Wigan have got a really new, exciting LRS scheme coming up where they're going to be looking after over 40 sites in Wigan for the next 20 years. And that's the first stage of this national sort of scheme.
That's a whole sort of landscape
recovery, yeah.
scheme.
So rather than look at these small, isolated sites, looking at places as a whole. So it's really, really going to be exciting for Wigan.
That's really great. So kind of going back to the people thing, sort of how are we looking for people to get involved? What are the opportunities out there?
So again, that people come volunteer with us. We have plenty of volunteering opportunities, and we're going to be doing, especially Champion Nature, training and upskilling and like walks and talks to educate people. But also a massive thing people can do is, go and help their local green space, maybe with us, maybe with other conservation charities or friends of groups, but also their gardens. Even if you've just got a little balcony or a small paved yard, there's so much you can do. So when you add together all the gardens in the UK, it comes to over twice the area of national nature reserves we have.
Yeah.
So it's a massive resource that we have, and a massive area that we can work across. So again, there's more than 2 million ponds in gardens, which is way more than there is in the countryside.
Wow.
So these are really stepping stones for species gardens, and just being a bit more friendly garden, using less pesticides, adding a water source, doing things like no mow May, leaving a scruffy area, not being overly tidy, does make a massive difference. It's not tokenistic as people think. It will make a big difference.
Yeah. I think sometimes people can be like, well, what difference can I make in my little patch? I've not got a huge, massive garden, but in fact, it's that sort of power of collective action.
Absolutely. I tend to like to look at it like a picture on a TV screen, and you think about that picture is made up of lots of little pixels.
Yeah.
All of our gardens and the bits that we can take ownership over and take action for are a pixel. And once we stop taking action and we just put fake grass down, or we concrete it all and get rid of it all, our pixel goes out.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you lose the picture. If we all do that, the picture's gone. So it's all about keeping our pixels going, lit up, bright and shining, and let's get HD.
I love that. That's such a nice way to look at it. It makes so much sense. So if what are some of the kind of tips? I know you gave us a few there, Rory, but have you got any other tips that people can do at home?
I think a really rewarding one and a way of connecting is feeding wildlife. So we think about our bird feeders, people putting food out for hedgehogs, and it can be really useful. But there's a few kind of caveats to that, a few things that we need to make sure we're doing. So making sure it's appropriate food for the species that you're feeding. And a massive one is keeping feeders clean. really big ask. Please view our feed and wildlife, keep your feeders clean. A bit like us, you don't want to eat off a dirty plate. You're not going to eat off the same plate for a week. Well, I hope you're not. You're going to be ill if that happens. And it's the same. There's things like salmonella, or there's a particular species that I absolutely love, which is a greenfinch. And numbers have really declined because I can't say the disease that they get, but it causes like lesions in the mouth, and that's spread by dirty feeders. So feeding's lovely, but please make sure they're clean. Another thing that we don't often think about is lighting, I think. If we think about our nocturnal friends, especially bats, urban places tend to be very bright. We're not nocturnal. We like to see at night. And so one ask of a way that we can improve our spaces for wildlife is about either removing lighting, or if we are having lighting, think downward facing lighting. And on the nocturnal theme, I've been thinking a bit about bats recently, about planting. So diversity is key. You know, you'll hear in conservation the term biodiversity thrown around a lot. And that's basically life difference. We break that word down. Bio is life, diversity difference. And the more difference that we can get in our garden, so loads of different species of plants that are flowering all through the year and at different times of the day. So why I say that is bats obviously feed off insects. So if we can get evening blooming flowers, then I was trying to think of an example then, it's completely gone off my head, but there's
things like evening primroses.
That is fantastic and going to give bats a helping hand. And where possible, plant native, but that's not like, that's it, that's the rule. Mix it up. Again, diversity is key, and feel free to have your garden. It's for you and for nature. It's that shared space.
Yeah, I love that idea of us sharing our gardens with nature. That's really lovely.
And also another thing we could do is going out and recording species. So even when you're just on a walk on your phone, you can use an app called iNaturalist or Seek, and it's just having those records, and that helps build a picture of how nature's doing, and the sort of look at those long-term trends, and then what interventions that might need. And then for the next level of that, you can do, join organised recording sessions and go off and do that on yourself, which had training. So we train up volunteers to do common bird census, butterfly transects. So that's another way you can sort of add in, if you've not got loads of time or you've not got your own green space, you in fitting things in around work, anything, 1 or 2 records a day on your way home from work and things does help, and it does add in.
I love that idea, because not everyone has gardens. A lot of people don't, and you have yards or balconies or absolutely nothing. And like Rory was saying, that is a perfect example how you can have a real impact. And I'd strongly fly the flag as well for, there is so many groups out there, and amazing groups. So many community, and Rory said before about the Friends of groups, but there's groups dedicated to particular green spaces. So if you're going for a walk, you walk your dog every day, or you go for a run or whatever, and you feel that connection to a green space, rather than just going, yeah, that's great, and almost feel like you're right that it should be there and be all fantastic and fabulous for people in nature. Go and be part of that. Go and find out who's looking after that site, and I bet you there's a voluntary group behind it, as well as councils and other big organisations or big charities. There will be hyper local groups that you can be part of, and you can give your time to
It's getting out and volunteering. Lots of places, lots of companies now have volunteering days. You can go out and help volunteer. And as well, like the Wildlife Trust is built on volunteering. It's really a core principle of us. And it's not all about practical volunteering. We offer remote volunteering and helping with, more technical things and mapping and stuff. So it's, if you're maybe, can't physically get out or don't have the time, there's still things you can do. Don't think if you're not going out with a shovel or a pair of loppers that you can't do anything. You can still do stuff. Everyone can do stuff, and even things that help fundraise as well. Every pound goes, makes a massive difference.
It really does. And I think as well, there's loads of things that people can do to help wildlife, to help support the Wildlife Trust and other sort of organisations, but actually people can get a lot out of that themselves as well. It kind of works both ways. Is there any more you can kind of tell us about, how great it is for us too?
Oh, there is so much evidence out there around the benefits of getting out into nature has for our own personal health and well-being and connections. So I'm sure in future podcast, you are definitely going to zoom in on wellbeing and nature connection.
We are.
But just briefly, there's the 5 ways to wellbeing, which is an NHS-backed. The idea that there's 5 different themes, which is give, learn, take notice, keep learning, and connect to others. And if you think about us getting out into nature, we do activities in nature that just tick those boxes straight away. If you think about a standard volunteering session, that you're coming out into a local park, you're giving back to nature, you're connecting with your fellow volunteers and that connection to nature. You're taking notice of like we talked about the dandelions, you're taking notice of those small little wins in that landscape scale as well. I've lost where I was up to. I can give it back to the...
What have we got? Have we got learn?
Learn. Obviously, you're going to be learning something. If you open yourself up, as adults, we tend to shut ourselves off from learning, like majorly.
Yeah.
We're constantly learning as a child, but as an adult, you can sometimes get into the position of, I'm done. But no, open your eyes again. Learning isn't always formal education. We can learn so much from each other. And going out volunteering, just listening to each other's experiences, we'll start to pick up. I have learned so much from our volunteers about nature that we live in, that, I went to uni and did all that, and I never learned anything like that at uni. And then physical, of course, just being in nature. You can really kind of utilize nature to help you in a physical way as much as it needs to be for you. So just the very essence of walking in a local park, walking over grass, it's undulating. It's not just flat.
Yeah.
That could be enough. Or you think, I'm thinking about Phillips Park, where we do a lot of work in Bury. That's just one big hill. So even just walking down to see the pond and the woods and walking back up, your heart's going.
Yeah.
So the getting out into nature, and especially through volunteering and being in your garden, getting out, getting your hands in the soil, it's all positive for your well-being. It's helping you.
It really is.
Yeah, and as Jenni mentioned before, we are part of nature. So being out of nature has so many benefits, and we've evolved to be as part of it. And, a lot of issues come from being shut inside all the time or in an office, and it's getting out as much as you can and just taking everything in.
Yeah. Or if anybody wants to do a bit of reading, check out the biophilia effect.
Ooh.
It's very interesting.
Ooh,
the idea
give
that
that a
society
Google.
has evolved way too quickly for ourselves. And that's where we have, when we go into a woodland and we're around trees, we get a really kind of complete wholesome feeling of, we feel good and we feel safe. And it's around that nature used to be our safety net. We are part of nature. It's our safety network. It provided food, shelter, water, everything else. So being in nature is part of our very beings. So it's a really good read. Yeah, look for the biophilia effect.
Definitely. I'm going to pop that on the reading list. And so just to kind of finish up, what does urban nature mean to you, and why do you get up in the morning and do what you do all day?
For me, I think it's life. I could not imagine waking up, and I live in quite an urban area. I couldn't imagine waking up, opening my curtains and not seeing some greenery, some form of nature, of wildlife. I love watching the pigeons. That's a confession. I wake up in the morning, and especially at the moment, the wood pigeons are out. I live over the road from a pub, but they've got a tree, they've got a big sycamore, and the pigeons are playing in the morning. And it's just that reminder of that calming influence, and that reminder that we're part of just something beautiful and important and life-giving.
It's not a bad way to start your day, really, though, is it? How about you, Rory?
Yeah, I think like Jenni said, it's just life. It's just part of my life. It's so ingrained. Like I have a dog, so walk him every day. I go to different local green spaces, and even in such a small geographical area, the amount of difference you go between different green spaces, you go to woodland, you go to grassland, etc. And it's just, you just feel connected and feel part of something bigger, and when I was ill a few weeks ago, I couldn't go out for a week, and I just went stir crazy, and I wanted to be out. I just wanted to go for a walk in a park and just be out. And I think it makes such a massive difference. And doing a job like ours, we can give something back. We can make things better. And I view it as I'm a custodian of these. I'm part custodian of these places and nature in the UK in general. And I'm not just doing it for me, I'm doing it for future generations. And I think, like we say, urban nature is amazing and I love it. And that's why I do what I do. And that's why I live where I live. But it could be so much better.
Yeah.
And that's what gets me up every morning is I can do more. I can, we can always do more, but I think there's things I can do and I am doing stuff to make things better. And even since I started, you can see that change. And there is a lot of momentum behind it now and a lot of people, pulling in the same direction and businesses and, other organisations, the NGOs. And I think we can make a massive difference. And, I go around and see things that I've got better in the last 2 years. And that's something that, means a lot to me that, we're going on the right trajectory and, there's things we can all do to help that along.
I think there's the what's the word for it? The campaign that we should have green space accessible to every single person in the UK that should be within a 15-minute walk of where somebody lives.
Yeah.
And that's not the case yet. And us people talking today, and we are very lucky. We are lucky people that we do live within 15 minutes of quality urban green space. And I think there is a lot of inequality still with access to nature. So a big part, like pretty much what you were saying there, Rory, of why we do this and what we're doing is to kind of level up a little bit and try and remove some of these inequalities. And look, part of our work is looking at how these inequalities, why they're there and how we can overcome some of these barriers as communities. And that's a big part of that co-production element as well, of looking at it together, not just the Wildlife Trust, not just other charities, but how do we all work together to face these inequalities.
And people and nature go hand in hand, and it's a big part of the project's working on, especially Champion Nature, is getting people out into these green spaces. They might not know they're there, they might not know what they're for and how to use them, and it's getting more people out and involved and, reaping those benefits from that.
Okay, so urban nature is clearly super important. It's this wonderful thing that, so many of us have got on our doorsteps. But, is it all that kind of easy and shiny and bright? There's got to be some challenges involved in what we're trying to work together to achieve. What are some of the hurdles that you find you're coming up against?
Oh yeah, there's certainly challenges in anything you do, especially in conservation. And, like I said, urban nature is amazing, but it does need help. Yeah. It is, a lot of areas are degraded, so they're not as good as they should be through, years of misuse and, old brownfield sites, things like that, which have massive potential, like we mentioned in Aberdeen before, but to get them to that stage does take a lot of work. Manchester was the first industrial city. It has a very, very industrial past, so it's still bearing those scars. And giving nature a helping hand goes a long way, but it still needs a helping hand. You can't just leave things and expect to come back in 10 years' time and it'd be amazing. It needs a lot of help. We have a massive problem with INS, so invasive non-native species. So a lot of plants are invasive, so things like Himalayan balsam, Japanese knotweed, giant hogweed. And we have the same with animals as well, like grey squirrels, they're a massive, massive problem. So after climate change, INS are the biggest threat to nature and biodiversity, right. And they cost, they cost billions annually, and to tackle that would cost billions, if not more. Correct. So a lot of the work we're doing is trying to address those fundamental issues and not just papering over the cracks. And we have other problems, like because we are in an urban area, we don't have swathes of land to use. And we have these small pockets, which again need help, but they're also fragmented. So they're just sort of these islands in a desert, in a concrete desert, in an urban jungle. So what we need to do is, how do we link up these? So do we link up these through gardens? And that's how gardens become stepping stones. And that's why gardens are massively important. So like hedgehogs use these. If everyone just put a pond in their garden, we'd have with these water sources. So species can hop between gardens, and then these can be our corridors between. Same with like keeping hedgerows, having, you know, gaps in fences so hedgehogs can get in. And so there is problems. And again, another thing is, which is a really big problem, is litter and antisocial behaviour. It's a massive problem in urban areas. You know, the mistreat and misuse of spaces, people having fires when they shouldn't be. You know, we see a lot of problems on moorland, but also, you know, old landfill sites. So a lot of Manchester is old landfill. You'd be amazed how many, you know, woodlands you go to and you look in the past and it's an old landfill site.
Right.
And the problem with that is, you know, a bit like peatlands, you have a barbecue, you have a fire, it can burn underneath. There's lots of gases, lots of methane come off, so it can cause massive, massive damage. And obviously just the fire itself, you know, above ground is destructive as well. And even things like off-road bikes can, you know, stop people accessing sites, but also wildlife, you know, it does make a big difference. And litter again. So the biggest thing, you know, people can do is just take litter home with them.
Yeah.
Or just put it in the bin. You know, it's such a simple thing to do, you know, and you see it clogging up our waterways. And again, you know, our waterways are getting better. We've seen otter return, you know, we've got kingfishers, but, you know, our waterways are some of the worst in Europe and some of the worst in the world. And, you know, we've seen this week, you know, that the water industry needs a massive overhaul, and even talking about changing regulators. So it is, you know, very prominent at the minute and very important. And, you know, campaigning can go a long way. So people writing to local councillors, the local MP, joining campaigns, you know, will go a long way. And we've seen that. And that's why water is now higher up on the agenda, on the political agenda. And that's why I'm really hopeful change will happen.
Yeah.
So there are lots of problems, but it's not all rosy, but it's not all doom and gloom. And I think, you know, if everyone, you know, took it upon themselves to do even just a small action, it would go a long way.
Yeah, I think from the people engagement side of things, you know, as a trust, one of our goals is to engage 1 in 4 people, and that number's 1 in 4 because there's a lot of research done to say that is the key for social change. For change to happen, 1 in 4 people need to be on that journey with us. And if you think about numbers, that is a lot of people. And I think I've mentioned throughout, for people to want to take action, they need to feel like they belong to this. And there is that inequality at the moment to access to nature. And there's so many different barriers that people are facing, from things like cost. Like, we live in Britain, it rains. Like,
it does.
Coats are expensive, footwear's expensive. To get out into nature, it isn't just your garden, but even like just spending time in your garden, you know, there is a cost to that. There's things like transport as well. You know, a lot of even urban green spaces aren't always the most accessible if you don't drive. And going with that, there's also like the confidence of how to be out in nature and how to engage in nature, and things like time. We're all so busy.
Yeah.
I mean, I hold my hands up. I try to volunteer outside of work, but time, it's a big constraint. So there's all these different barriers that people. Sorry, we've got a plane going over.
It's very
all
urban.
of these. We're in the urban environment. One of the challenges. It is. There are so many different barriers that people face. They want to be involved in this movement. They want to give back to nature. They want to be part of it. Or they just don't know how, and they don't see how. A lot of people that I work with, we think we get our message out there, and we post on socials. I put some posters up in the supermarket and the library and pharmacies and stuff. But it's how we need to think more innovatively about the barriers that our communities are facing, and become part of those communities to understand then how we best communicate and what those communities want and need, and understand that, then people feel that sense of belonging and that sense of ownership, and then change will happen and people have become on that journey all together, because it is for everyone then.
Exactly. It's like organisations like ourselves and others can't do everything.
No.
We need everyone to do their bit and to help out. And in a lot of it is just that change of mindset of, I mentioned no mow May before, just leaving your garden, or, you know, writing to your councillor to leave the roadside verge and do differential mowing, all these things will be a massive help.
Yeah, and I think sometimes people can see it's very much like an all or nothing. So no mow May, well, I have to leave all of my lawn. Actually, like I do no mow May, but actually I still mow where my kids play football.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
leave the bits around the edge.
Let it bloom June.
Exactly.
Keep it going in small little patches.
Yeah.
It's really,
But that's a good point. It's not about everyone, no one having a car anymore and all public transport's electric and no one eats meat and no one flies on holiday. It's just making some of these small changes that change your mindset around certain things, like taking litter home, giving a patch of wild in your garden, maybe doing a donation for a Christmas present to an organisation. All these things add up and will make a massive change. You don't have to change your complete lifestyle. Doing half an hour a week, volunteering or anything will help. Using your phone as you walk home from work to take a species record, it all adds in to the collective.
But, are there still some challenges that we're facing about getting that message across? And, what are we doing about it, really? How are we trying to kind of put that message across and talk to some of the people that we might not already be talking to as successfely? I know that's
I know you're going to
one.
go for a deep dive into this, but nature and wellbeing, I think, is something that as a trust we've really, really kind of focused on and developed and are doing some very, very impactful work of looking at supporting individuals that wouldn't necessarily have previously been out in nature or ever had that connection to nature or lost. A big one is losing that connection to nature, to support people to reconnect. And it's reaching those different communities that it takes time to do. And that's a massive challenge in itself, is constraints from funding. Quite often that we get projects that are like 2 years long.
Yeah.
How do you build trust in a community in that time? And achieve your outcomes of bringing so many people in and everything else? It does take time. And that's what's exciting with Champion in Nature, that it's a longer term project. So we've got 6-7 years on this project, and we've got that time to understand and go into communities and understand the challenges to build that time. So it's kind of building up that skill within the team to go out and to be brave as well, because it's communities that we don't necessarily already belong to. So a perfect example is kind of going into mosques. There's nobody that's Muslim on our team, currently on the nature and wellbeing team. And it takes that little bit of courage to understand a different community and to go into say like a mosque and understand talking to an imam and everything else. So it's that time and also confidence from staff to try new approaches and to be innovative.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, we are sort of set with a number of challenges. Funding is difficult. I think one of the big things you said there, Jenni, about the time it takes to kind of build relationships that are ongoing. But it's really hard not to always want to try and find a bit of positive, but there are positives.
Yeah, and like I say, obviously funding is always an issue. And, historically nature is just undervalued and underappreciated. And the tide of that is changing. So we have like natural capital and putting value on nature with BNG and things like that. And that is the first step into getting the funding that's needed. But also with our work, like people like Wimbledon and Emirates are now realising how important nature is and putting the money where the mouth is and funding things. And we have a really good partnerships team, so work with a lot of corporates to get more private finance into the nature market. And like I say, even just being a member for a couple of pounds a month makes a massive difference, and it enables organisations like ourselves to do really good work.
Yeah.
I think something that's really doing well at the moment, again, it's nice to go back to the positive, is the idea of collaboration. I feel like the green sector has stop being quite so competitive with each other, which is easy to fall into when you're all trying to bid for the same funding, you're all trying, and you're all doing fantastic work that's all important. But there's definitely more around networks and collaborative approaches and how we work together for our joint aims. And that is like a massive positive, because we're all bringing different experience and different kind of viewpoints to break those echo chambers. So that is a massive positive. If we can take a positive spin towards funding a little bit, sharing those assets and resources.
And that's similar how we tackle nature. So there's the Lawton report, and the Lawton principles are bigger, better, more joined up, and that's how we tackle nature. And that's how we work together with organisations. It's that collaboration. It's not one person, one organisation as a whole. It's a movement to do everything together.
Definitely. And as I say, there are challenges, and there always will be, and we will sort of have to keep addressing those. But I think, across the trust, and especially within some of our urban nature projects, really exciting things are happening. We can just keep going. Brilliant. Thank you so much. It's been really great to kind of have a little bit of a delve into some of our urban nature projects and why urban nature is so important and why it matters so much. Thank you so much. And if everyone at home wants to find out any more, then best thing to do is head to our website and sign up to our newsletter. You'll get loads of information will drop straight into your inbox. And one other thing that everyone at home can possibly think about is maybe supporting the Wildlife Trust as a member. Membership starts from only sort of a couple of pounds a month. And it can really help us make a huge difference to green spaces, whether they are urban and on your doorstep or in the middle of nowhere and wonderfully isolated. So thanks very much, guys.
Thank you.
See you soon.